right, guys, we are back and we've got a good one right now. We've got Marc here from Pyth Network and Henri Arslanian from 9 Blocks Capital. How you doing, guys?
Jam, doing wonderful. Great day, great event so far.
Well, no, it's good to be in Dubai. I say this week is always a Super Bowl of crypto. So
Super Bowl.
I'm here in Dubai this week. Very excited. Thanks for having us, by the way. Big fan of Deribit and the Deribit family. So thanks for having us on.
It's a pleasure. And the party's pumping in the background.
Exactly. It's all kicking off now in Dubai. Everyone's like been to their conferences. They're coming now. They just want to let their hair down and chill. So Marc, why don't we start with you? Everyone already knows who Henri is. So tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing over at Pyth.
Yeah, definitely. So Pyth Network, as everyone calls it, we're an Oracle network, mostly organized around price feeds, 1,500 price feeds available on 110 blockchains. And our bread and butter is actually sourcing data no one else can get. And so we have over 100 publishers going from US stock exchange like SIBO, IEX, MEMEX, big traders like Virtue, but also like big crypto trading firms like Jump Trading, Wintermute, Oros, and I'm forgetting 80 others. And very much our business and our goal is to enable great finance to happen on chain.
Nice. And so you want to be like the Bloomberg of crypto?
Long term, yes, because one thing we kind of realized recently is infra isn't that valuable. And actually the edge within the Oracle is in the data. And when we look at the Oracle landscape today, Pyth is pretty much the only one able, given our structure, to be able to price any TradFi asset in the world. So I mentioned the top 600 US stocks. Next week, we have the Hong Kong and UK top 50 stocks going live. And very much our goal, like our new tagline is pricing everything anywhere. On-chain, off-chain, any assets.
Nice. One go-to shop, basically. One-stop shop.
Exactly.
Nice. And Henri, I hear you've been over at Token doing some hosting, huh?
Oh, man, moderating panels and trying to give insights of our crazy industry to the audience. You know, one fun fact this week, I mean, obviously, I think this has become the biggest crypto event now of the year, which is quite incredible. If you think about it, there was pretty much no crypto activity in Dubai only 3-4 years ago. And now, obviously, you know, all the big companies are regulated here, including Deribit. You know, and the regulator here, believe it or not, has over 850 companies waiting in line to get regulated. And I think the event this week was another testament of how Dubai has become arguably the global crypto hub globally.
So you must have heard some interesting conversations over the last day or two. What stood out to you?
You know, I was on stage 3 times this week, just the last 2 days. I mean, this morning I moderated a panel with the Dubai regulator, actually, talking about how Dubai became a global crypto hub. Yesterday, I had one with the CEO of Binance, with Richard Tang, talking about what the plans are for Binance globally. And what was interesting as well, probably the panel I found the most interesting was yesterday lunchtime, had a one-on-one with the CEO of Mantra, JP Mullen, with all the recent scandal around the OM and Mantra. And basically the organizers and Mantra agreed that I can have a one-on-one with him on stage. And my condition was I can ask anything I want to them. And to be fair, we had a great 20 minutes.
Just like we can ask you anything.
Oh, of course, feel free. And obviously he's been a bit to more rock and roll situations recently. But, you know, it was interesting. I was with the CEO of Mantra 3 weeks ago in Paris. And life was beautiful. Everything was going great for them. That was a Friday. And that Sunday, of course, their whole world fall apart. So it was very interesting.
That story sounds a bit familiar in crypto, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's bad luck. You know, I was the last person, SBF, I was the last public interview of Sam Bankman-Fried in Hong Kong the week before it collapsed.
You give him the kiss of death?
I don't know what's happening, and maybe I shouldn't be here today on the podcast.
No, we might need to get him off.
I never thought about that, actually. It's true you're telling me this, actually. I was actually, I think, JP Morgan's last interview as well. At SBS last public interview, so hey, it is what it is. I've done many great interviews as well over the years. I went well afterwards, but
so you're telling me earlier, like, so you're very involved in the education side, like you've done the Crypto University course, trying to basically help with the mass adoption, right? So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I do a couple of things. Obviously, I've been in crypto space now for 10 years. I was in Hong Kong before moving to Dubai, and I discovered Bitcoin in 2013, organized my first event in 2014 at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce on Wyndham Road in Hong Kong. And then obviously I left to join PwC to build their entire crypto team at PwC, which went from me and a business plan to 400 people, 25 countries, and a $100 million business globally. But really how I've been involved in education is, you know, when I got into crypto, there was not much to be done. I mean, there was not a lot of content. There was not great podcasts like what you guys have here. and I said, I should create content. And I did a couple of things. One is I created a 60-second, what I call the crypto capsule on LinkedIn that has become over the years one of the most successful finance shows on LinkedIn. I have a podcast called The Future of Money that is now in the top 5% of all podcasts on Spotify globally. And of course, I have books. I have the book of crypto, which has became bestseller. I just had a book for kids now called Henri and Hodler.
I love that. I mean, I think that's, kids don't get taught about money and finance. I've got 2 young kids, and they're not going to get taught anything.
How old are they?
School. 8 and 11, right?
That's a spot. I wish I brought you a copy of the book.
Well, I want a signed copy of it.
Here we go. But the way it happened was a couple of years when my last book came out, it became a bestseller. And I got 200-300 messages from buyers. They're like, Henry, I want to teach my kids. Like, probably you're the typical customer, actually.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let me do a book for kids. How complicated can it be?
Yeah.
Famous last words. So actually, I thought it was going to be easy. It took us 3 years to build the book, and now it's called Henri and Hodler. It's called Decoding Crypto with Henri and Hodler. Actually, the CEO of Deribit, Luke, actually is one of the endorsers of the book. You can see Luke's signature at the beginning of the book.
So a bit of bedtime reading for my kids.
Well, you know what happened? We started that, and it's way more complicated than I thought, because the book for adults, we just deliver content and easy way people understand. What probably as a good time bedtime reader, for kids, it has to be fun, funny, it has to rhyme. You need a superhero. So in my case, it's Professor Henri and Hodler. My buddy, I've
called the superhero.
Yeah, well, the professor is a character. My buddy's called Nakamoto. There's a female superhero called Solidity. And so it's myself and my co-author is a best-selling kids author, non-crypto. We brought the crypto element. And our illustrator, which was very difficult, by the way, is a guitarist of a band called Good Charlotte that you guys may know. So we came all together, we made the book, and I'm proud to say the book has been a #1 bestseller for many months.
You're going to write an options book for kids.
Well, our next book definitely will be on Bitcoin specifically. And in there, we want to talk about our options, actually, so people learn about money. The reason I wrote that book was I have kids that are
Can I be the superhero in that one?
You'll be character if you want, and we'll make you whatever you want, as long as you're not the villain. But you know what's the reason is my daughter used to go to school and tell her friends, my dad is the CEO of Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, shit, I have to find a solution.
You're him.
Yeah. But that's why we wrote the book. And then, I think the reason I mentioned this, all jokes aside, is we're all in crypto. We understand finance. Many of us have been in TradFi before in crypto. I find it unacceptable that we let kids go to schools and even universities and would not teach them about crypto, whereas they're the generation that will be the most impacted by the future of finance.
I mean, I totally agree, but the reality is there's still people who are holding on to the idea that it's a Ponzi scheme, for crying out loud. I don't know how they can still hold on to that, but they're out there.
Yeah, but that changes with time as well. For example, recently I was after all these years of creating content, I have a show on CNBC Arabia now called Crypto Weekly that is seen by 60 million people each week across the Middle East, Africa, a couple million via my social media, and a couple million via CNBCs. And what I found is the most watched segment, especially on social media because we can track it, is the educational segment. I do a 1-minute educational segment on each one of my episodes. It's by far the most watched episode. And this shows you that actually people want to be educated.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, I think we forget in crypto, we are all frankly, a bit arrogant that, we use all these cool rules and this and that. We have our own jargon. But for an average person that wants to learn about crypto, they're ashamed. They won't come to Meetup and ask their hand and say, sorry, what is a Bitcoin option? What is coin margin?
Yeah.
Let me not get started with words about staking and others jargon. So I think, but what you'll find is there's a silent majority that doesn't want to be embarrassed. That's why they watch YouTube. They watch content like that.
I see that in my own trading community.
Right. There we go.
I've got Discord server. I've got people who come in wanting to learn options, but they're scared to ask questions because they feel like they don't want to appear stupid.
Yeah.
Everyone who's openly speaking knows what they're talking about. So how do I ask a question that sounds really dumb? And it's like you have to actually almost offer them, a safe space where you're like, don't worry, guys. Here's like a beginner's channel where you can all ask as basic questions as you like, no judgment, and you have to bring it out of them. So things that like you're doing with the books is fantastic.
Yeah, but it's difficult. I think the big problem we found in crypto, and I found a lot of even your listeners and you guys, what you're learning is great. I find in crypto, a lot of people say don't want to publish, don't want to create content. They're like, oh, what do I have to say? Or I don't have any particular insights. And that is the biggest mistake. I'm a big believer in personal branding. I'm a big, for example, on LinkedIn alone, I have over 500,000 followers. And the reason is, you create content, you share. And I find, especially in trading community, there's some guys who are very flamboyant that have these channels on YouTube. Frankly, 90% of them should be banned because of, let's say, unethical content. Often they're sponsored, it's not disclosed. They get kickbacks, it's not disclosed. But I find actually, if everybody spent a time, take a 1 or 2 minutes a day, just share your thoughts on podcasts, on YouTube. It's never been
It's about
easier.
consistency, right?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to build such a massive following?
So, I have videos on YouTube. People can actually let's go watch of how I create my videos, how I record my panel. Everything is public. Even my equipment that I use is on.
Oh, wow.
What I found over the years, I've had hundreds of people reach out to me saying, Henry, I want to create content. Where everybody fails, they do once, twice, 3 times, up, and they drop. Consistency is.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I started creating content in 2016. At the time, I used to live in Hong Kong. I have young kids, I have family and everything. I spent my weekends. I rented a hot desk in a shared office space. I used to work on my content all weekend. I was not with my kids. I was not hiking. I was not partying. I was on our brunches, but I would write the content. On Monday, I would publish it. Nothing. Next week, I would come and do the same thing. Publish Monday, nothing. And after 9 months of wasting and focusing on it, I hit the hockey stick. So, now I think it's become easier because, for example, I'm a firm believer. I have 500,000 followers. In 1 or 2 years, the number of followers will not matter. For your CMOs, your marketing crews, they won't care. They're going to care about views. Now on TikTok, for example, you can have 1 follower or 1 million. The algorithm is completely independent from that. They will look at what you've watched. And this is why I believe that you can create content now, have 0 followers. But if you're talking, for example, a big niche about something that's valuable, there's a market. And I'm a firm believer. When people like Kim Kardashian and others, I love my fellow Armenian, by the way, but I have nothing that. I mean, you could have 100, 200 million followers. It won't matter in 1 or 2 years because let's say you guys, the podcast on crypto options, for example, there's maybe 100,000 people in the world that care about crypto options, but that is a niche community. I'm a big believer the future belongs to micro-influencers. You can have 5,000 people, but if that 5,000 people really deeply care about what you're doing, the super fans, that is the future. I wish more people would care about that and create content because it's exactly what you guys are doing has a market.
It's also about authenticity, right? I think the thing that really helps people get big and go viral these days is that raw authenticity of, I'm not trying to sell you a dream. I'm not trying to dress it all up. I'm just trying to tell the fucking truth, right?
And you don't need to be perfect. I always tell English is my 3rd language. I grew up in Montreal. At home, we used to speak Armenian. At school, in Quebec, it's illegal to learn English until a certain age. I learned English when I was like 10, 11 years old. To this day, I mumble. As you guys see, I don't speak clearly. There's words I cannot say, like 1, 2, 3. I cannot say 3. My kids make fun of me, But, I was a very shy kid, by the way. I was very ashamed to go in public. I was very shy.
Really?
And, gradually I tried to overcome that, and I really believe that now building a personal brand is so important. I always give the example. I used to be a partner at PwC. I used to run the business. So many times I used to get pieces of work come in, and there would be, Henry, we want to appoint you at KPMG or you at McKinsey. I say, hey, guys, I'm a PwC partner. They're like, yeah, but we want you. And I think this is where the industry is heading. Whether you're a PM at a fund, you're a trader in a macro fund, people, unfortunately, a lot of these hedge funds, TradFi firms and crypto funds, they don't want their staff to be public. They see excuses like compliance or security. Let me tell you, as a lawyer, if your compliance officer tells you cannot create content, it's bullshit. Actually, you should go create content, create it on TikTok.
As long as you stick a disclaimer at the front, you're all good, right?
Well, disclaimer also, like maybe don't share the company secrets. But I mean, there's a lot of macro color that you guys do very well, for example, on your show that I think will be very valuable. So one thing, create content, doing ethically, be transparent and be professional and deliver insights. If you deliver insights and useful insights, your audience. Well, the last point I mentioned on this is, for example, when I moderate a panel, when I'm a panelist on a panel, I will always spend time preparing. If today, for example, on this show, your audience is dedicating 20 minutes of their lives to listening to this, you have a mission and you have to deliver value to your audience. And the day you don't take that seriously, your audience will remember. You guys do a good job. You prepare for it. You study your guests. You deliver content, and that's what people want to see.
Marc, what was the point that brought you into this space? Like what
inspired you?
Yeah.
I hate middlemen. A bit of color, and I hate middlemen. Like relying on something else. So, I mean, I used to live in Hong Kong, and when you mentioned Wyndham Street, brought back many memories.
Some we shouldn't talk about, probably.
The went into crypto, moved apartment 7 years ago. The guy was an OG BitMEX guy, got me in. But for 2 years, it was just about trading. And I was fascinated by Monero, not having the government, the banks being able to track you, etc. And so very much from a philosophical perspective. I'm not at all coming from TradFi. market data was a completely new environment for me 4 years ago when I joined Pyth. And it's just like empowering people over your finances. And it's what crypto also taught me, that like, okay, I did my French baccalaureate in economics. You get served nonsense or not practical things. When you start to understand, I understood inflation or the impact of inflation when I discovered Bitcoin and understood Bitcoin of it. So it's very much, owning, being your own decision maker.
Autonomy, having autonomy,
Exactly.
right, over your financial future, as it were.
Exactly. And do not trust centralized party, because it may work today, it may work tomorrow. You'll get tracked at some point.
Well, in the political environment right now, trust is getting torn up and thrown in the bin, right? From what's going on in the US.
But sadly, government has the power, the military power, so they might stay. But one example I was talking earlier is when we talk Oracle or DeFi or anything, we're overemphasizing technicalities. And even to newcomers, which is totally stupid.
That's not how you teach people.
I have no clue how the Swift network was.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
And there's many things where we like put down crypto or blockchain generally just because, it's a Ponzi or whatnot. But one example is like everyone complains about that you have, when you use DeFi, when you're on chain, you have a wallet pop-up. When I pay something on Amazon, I get a pop-up on my bank app on my phone. It's the same process. So very much like dumbing it down and just showing use case to people. And sadly, most of the use case, or people get the use case of crypto when terrible things happen. Lebanon banks, or Turkey, Argentina, when all the currency goes to zero, you're like, all right, now I get scarcity.
Yeah. 100%.
It's incredible, right? And I think this is one thing where, like you mentioned, I find it incredible that we're not teaching this. Think about your economics class you did in France. Nobody covers this. And this is why I really believe this is a historical period in the history of money. Our kids, our grandchildren, we're studying this period we're living right now. Hopefully, if you look at historical trends, the market collapses or there's debasement and stuff like that. But I find it incredible that, we're not teaching like crypto, not forget crypto, like Bitcoin and the value of money. Like I said, even myself, you learn about, inflation, hyperinflation, all these elements because of Bitcoin. And I think it's incredible how this is happening.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting things. I write a newsletter called Connecting the Dots, London Crypto Club, for the point of education and kind of with my macro framework and how I see crypto. And then we do some other educational pieces. It amazes me, like friends, family, ex-colleagues who know that I gave up a career in investment banking to come into this space. I write a newsletter about it. I do a podcast, and some of them not even taken the time to look and read my content. It might not be great. I don't know.
I think we should
send them
Henry.
Yeah, we probably should. But I would naturally go if someone was like, "God, you're doing all of this. You must really believe in this thing." At least let me spend 5 minutes thinking about it and looking at it.
Do they call you an influencer nowadays?
Yeah, I know. But the thing is now, it's amazing, like the herd mentality and impact. Now it's kind of becoming a lot more accepted. Now the questions are, it's this Bitcoin thing, right? It sounds like it's going to stay around, right? It's like, oh, guys, like we've been talking about this for years, yes. But it's now like they feel a lot more comfort because the crowd is starting to move that way. It's not there yet fully, but it's going that way.
If I may, I think so. In the, let's say, developing countries, this scarcity, Bitcoin, moneyness makes total sense. When Europe, arguably, not everything's great.
Kind of works okay, yeah.
But, and this is where I'll come back to I hate middlemen, is big country, big economy will actually, I think, embrace blockchain, crypto, whenever they understand not the efficiency it can bring. Remove the 3 days waiting on you do a bank wire on Friday evening.
Yeah.
Bringing this cost efficiency and censorship resistance. English is not my first language, still looking there. So I think, developing countries, it's moneyness.
Yeah.
Main countries, US, same.
Yeah.
Bring efficiency to the existing traditional markets.
Yeah.
And we'll get the people this way, I think.
And I think the only like in the West, the one thing I think that makes some people realize the dangers of like centralization and is if you try and withdraw a large amount of your own money out of a bank, like the questions, and sometimes it gets blocked. No, we're not letting you take your own money back. It's like,
yeah, and it's our money.
it's my money. Like it's, you know, it's, and that's when people start to go, I see now, you know, like the sort of value in decentralized finance and stuff like that.
And, you know, it's so sad. You know, I'm amazed. I really believe now, you know, if you think about it today, if you're born in North Korea, in Iran, in Syria, in Lebanon, the one thing in your life you have no control in has a massive impact on the financial service you can access. And I truly believe in 40, 50 years, we're going to look back at the period right now and say, I cannot believe societies where we're doing this discrimination. In the same way, we look at slavery now, we look at all these things that happened over the years. We're going to look back and say, I cannot believe that was such a big part of the world that we decided rules, or this is how the sanction system works. Yeah. Somebody who lives in Russia right now has nothing to do with the government or anything like that. Why are we penalizing? And I truly believe we're going to look back at this and say, how come we should discriminate on asking somebody your nationality? Or
what it boils down to is the banks make a lot of money and they want to protect that system so they can keep making a lot of money, right? You look at bank earnings every single quarter. They're not losing money, billions and billions that they make, right? So this disruption you're talking about is going to come at the expense of the banks, right?
Yes and no. I'm not sure banks will disappear, right? I mean, there's a whole conversation about creation of money, but like,
if we
definitely there is, I believe that the future of decentralized finance, where, you know, like you said, you know, I can have this transaction, I try trust and code, I'm able to, and I think a lot of people in the mass market, I think we do a bad job in crypto, don't realize how much you can do on DeFi. Yes, there's challenges now, user-friendly, this and that, but I think it's quite incredible. I think one of the biggest innovations we've had in finance the last couple of years is really the rise of DeFi. And not only the fact that it's permissionless, but also the fact that it's composability, right? That I can take whatever I want, build out on that, and there's a lot to be done.
I still think the user experience needs to improve
100%.
a million times. Yeah, like someone in the space, I find it difficult to use at times.
Even I'm not.
Like people want to be able to use what feels like almost like Web 2 type applications.
It's to Mark's point about dumbing it down.
Yeah.
It'll be dumbed down so that, you know, that friction of getting your head around it is so minimal that it's just easy to do. A few clicks of a button on your phone and you're there, right?
I've been using DeFi almost daily for 4 or 5 years. Sometimes I'm scratching my 30 minutes to bridge out from one asset to another asset. USDE, I mean the non-official circle. It's a nightmare. You have no... So this is terrible.
But that just tells us how early we still are.
Correct.
Right?
We're still early.
Regarding to banks, I think more of they'll go on-chain. It won't be public permissionless chain, but even these banks, they have, I think, the incentives, maybe not next week or next year, to be on-chain. Like, I would, like, what was it? A year ago, 2 years ago, the whole big nickel trade on the London Stock Exchange that got completely
margin
called back.
Yeah.
And all
I'd be right with that, actually.
Like, complete fuck. That, like, it could be, if it were, or even on a permission, call it the JP Morgan chain or whatever, you would have transparency and accountability. So, and this, I think, will at some point take off. And, like, we see many more, like, chains coming up with specific feature, privacy feature, because I'm pretty sure Fidelity doesn't want us to see that position on Hyperliquid.
Yeah, someone else mentioned that the privacy feature is going to be huge for institutional adoption.
It will have chains for banks, but it's still, I guess, an improvement. Like weekend, a Saturday wire transfer. Done on chain, it can be done in a second, not in 2 days.
Yeah.
Henry?
Yeah.
And before we leave,
Yep.
You've been at Token, you spoke to a lot of people this week. What's your kind of big sort of takeaway from this experience out here in Dubai?
First of all, as a resident of Dubai, I'm really impressed what the government here has done actually to make really the UAE crypto hub. It's been quite remarkable. We were the first time blocks, the first crypto company, one central, where all these crypto companies were. And now I'm literally 1 minute walk away from all my counterparties, including Deribit, which is quite remarkable what they've done in 36 months, and hats off. And I think what we're going to see in the UAE is become a role model for many other countries and regulators around the world.
Right.
That's a positive. I would say the one thing that scared me, but this week I was at the main event, is I was walking. I've had the privilege actually that, believe it or not, I'm the only person that has spoken to every single Token 2049 from their first event in Hong Kong. in 2016. So I've seen this event over the years, and I was walking in the alleys and seeing a lot of the red flags I used to see before, companies, people punting me some stuff. And I was like, oh, God, here we go again. It's a lot of these signs that we used to see in all these old bull markets with
local top.
Oh, so I was, I can't believe it. But overall, very impressed by the quality of conversations, where the industry is going. I remain extremely bullish, of course, on Bitcoin and the crypto industry. But let's not forget, I think we are always as strong as the weakest member of our team. I'm really afraid of in the crypto industry that if there's bad apples and others that are not have, let's say, the same good intentions, and that can really put us a couple of years back as we've had in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
I really enjoyed it, Marky.
We're finally wrapping up our Perpetual episode, so we can go and have some fun.
Thank you very much, and hope we don't get liquidated tonight on that.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Yes.